Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. Guys, you have a spectacular presentation in front of you tonight. We have three dynamic gentlemen that are here with us. We have none other than world-renowned artist, Dr. Don CIncone. I know you know that name. If you don't, you will very soon. We have our up-and-coming world-renowned artist, Brother Daryl Triplett. And again, if you don't know that name, you will know soon. And none other than the procurer of the Northeast Louisiana Delta African American Heritage Museum in the person of Brother Ross Slacks. And if you don't know that name, you will know it soon. I am your host, Melvin Casey Lars of the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. And we are coming together tonight to talk about a very historic situation. Many of us know that it's a very dark history anytime you talk about enslavement and people being involved and not being given rights of any kind, any place. However, tonight we're introducing to you a group called Shackles 400. We are unintended ambassadors of America, and we are writing a piece and working on a piece collaboratively called The Antithesis of America's Reality, Shackles 400 Unchained, America's Unintended Ambassadors. Now, listen, I know that's a mouthful. However, these brothers are up to the task. And I'm telling you, as we start to share, that you're going to find out all of these things that we're talking about. Brother Daryl Triplett is going to be sharing with you guys the motto. And as we talk about the motto, they're going to show you some paintings. I may even do a poem or two that's talking about history. But you didn't come to hear me. You came to hear the group. We want to welcome all of our listeners out there. I see hearts going up already. I see thumbs up going up already. But I know that once these brothers get started, we won't have space to hold it on this set. So, gentlemen, I want to say to everybody on this set right now, let me repeat. Dr. Don CIncone, Brother Daryl Triplett, and Brother Ross Slack. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Listen, gentlemen, it is time for us to roll. And our audience, again, as I said, are giving you guys a lot of thumbs up already, a lot of hearts. Brother Triplett, if you kind of get us started, brother, if you share with our audience the motto for the Shackles 400 group.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lars, our mission statement goes something like this: building relationships of mutual respect for the truth of the past by seeking wisdom and understanding of our human identity to benefit present and future generations.
Bravo.
Now, with that mission statement, we're trying to cover the past, the present, and the future, which is where we're headed.
Great. And you know what? Excellent motto, because I must say, I may be a little biased, but what I want our audience to understand is simply this. The motto that you've just shared, we're looking at three various different generations in Dr. CIncone, Brother Ross and myself, and in Brother Triplett. So all of you guys that just heard that motto, you are looking at the melding of multiple generations. That is why, and we want to give all the props where props are due. Brother Ross decided he was going to share with us this very brilliant statement, is that we are America's unintended ambassadors. Now let that sink in a moment. So we're going to ask Brother Ross to elaborate on that. We're going to ask Dr. CIncone first to if you'll start sharing with us about this group and how it came about and how the name materialized, etc. Dr. CIncone, will you dive in there and kind of share with us how this whole process got started?
Gladly. And we want to thank you for giving us this privilege to be on the Nobody Knows show, Guy. This began 4 or 5 years ago with Daryl Triplett and I, and another artist friend of ours was talking about the fact that at that time, the 400th year of Africans being brought to the North American continent and enslaved, and at Jamestown, Virginia in 1620, August 20th. out of that, we began to think about the paintings that we could generate over a period of time that would reflect and touch the consciousness of all that might see those paintings and build in hope for the moment and hope for the future. The emphasis would be placed essentially on our families, all families of America and the world. Out of that, we began working on pieces, and as the time grew near, Triplett brought to my attention again how close we were to that event. So we began to reflect on how to do something beyond just painting artwork or paintings. Not that that isn't very significant to the idea, but in that reflective time, Triplett jotted down some words that pointed toward this, and he asked me to join him in that collaborative effort. And over some few days, we worked, and I remembered when I was at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, attending a graduation ceremony. And the speaker for that particular event was the Reverend Jeremiah Wright.
Yes.
He took his message from the book of Ephesians, the 6th chapter and the 20th verse. And that speaks of Paul talking about him being an ambassador for Jesus Christ. He went from that to an introduction to his message by telling us about when he went to Africa and went to that island Goree, where was the last exit for Africans who were destined to be in slavery and their generations to come. And his text subject was "Remember My Chains." And he built a powerful message reflecting on what those chains had meant to us over the long period of time, but most especially giving hope and trying to set the importance of this in the minds of the graduates, giving them the charge to go and serve humanity, not destroy. From that, we furthered the search, and chains being that thing that we remember from tales of our ancestors, but most particularly the chain, just to say that word does not bring us to where that event really was. It was the captured, the being captured. So shackles became the word that jumped out of that. So we simply put them together, Shackles 400. That's how we got to that particular aspect of it.
Wow. Wow. Brother Triplett, would you like to add or share more on that particular topic, or do we need to keep it moving?
Well, I think Ross could kind of add to that.
Well, what I would just like to add to that is that what I try to do is correlate the shackles with where we are now. As you know, ambassadors are people who give positive outlook to whatever they're trying to do. And as a black race, as we see now, we are great ambassadors for the United States. We always have good things to say about them. But if we look at our past, we were not brought here to be ambassadors, as our chains would tell us about. We were here to do other things, to work, to work the fields, to do whatever they wanted us to do. But through it all, we persevered through slavery, through the civil rights era, and we still have great things to say about the United States. So that shows the correlation between us being slaves and being brought here and what we are now. So we've come a long way. But what I like for us to remember is that even though we are ambassadors, we have a rich history that a lot of us need to know about, and not just our race, but all races, so we can all heal one another with what we're going through.
And that's right, because we were talking today about there's not many celebrations going on today, and I'm puzzled by that, because this is a day I think that we all should be celebrating. I don't know whether or not we should be celebrating, but certainly recognize it as an important day in American history, black and white alike.
Most certainly. And that's a perfect segue into a part of this artistry, because they're all collaborating. But I understand there is a T-shirt that has been put together with an emblem that was collaborated upon. Would you like to talk a little bit about that and possibly show our audience a T-shirt? But before you do that, I have to tell you guys, I'm looking at my other monitors up here, and there's thumbs up going everywhere and hearts going everywhere. So, hey, keep bringing the pain, brothers. Keep bringing the pain.
Yes, we did a couple of designs. By us being artists, Uncle Don and I came up with various designs, but we promoting two of them at the present time. We have T-shirts, of course. The logo is going to be implemented on not only shirts but also on caps, bags, etc., etc. But we really want to get the message out, and this is one of the designs that I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see it, but this is one here.
Yes, we can see it.
Shackles 400, with the outlining, a rendering of the continent of Africa, and of course, with those beautiful colors of the African continent, red, black, and green. We put a little blue and white and red in there to represent where we've been for the last 400 years. And you can see a rendering of the United States. And of course, Shackles, and Mr. Ross gave you a pretty good synopsis of where that came from and how it came to be.
Wow, and Deborah Caldwell is saying that was genius. Thank you for that comment, Miss Deborah, because I feel the same way. That is definitely genius.
Thank you.
And, as we move forward in this process, and you're talking about Shackles 400, unintended ambassadors, and the whole nine, within the museum, Brother Slacks, I know that there are portraits from these gentlemen. Is there a particular single I don't want to say portrait, but is there a particular painting that normally catches the eye of some of your visitors when they enter the museum?
Oh, one of the paintings of Dr. CIncone that I really love is called Standing on Shoulders. And when I bring it to people to explain it to them, I can't do it justice, but I'm sure Dr. CIncone, he's going to probably bring it out and let you see it. But it talks about the rich history of African Americans, and how he came about it is beyond me. I'm not an artist, but I love art, and I love all of the people. We're like a kindred spirit, us three here, even though we're from three different generations. We can touch all different generations by adding about what we're doing here and what we're trying to accomplish.
Wow.
And here it is.
Okay.
Standing on shoulders.
Standing on shoulders. And I have to say again to our audience, oh, wow, Dr. CIncone, I'm going to commit some of them right now, because I'm seeing hearts and thumbs go up. And we want to also let them know by the end of the show how they can purchase these pieces. So we don't just want them to give us the thumbs up and the hearts. We want them to make some purchases. So Dr. CIncone, beautiful painting.
Give them a little synopsis of it.
Will you give us a more in-depth piece on what prompted that painting and how it came about?
Yes, gladly. The painting came about as a result of an African proverb. And the African proverb is about a spider, and the spider is Anus. And Anus, the spider, traveled all over the world watching human beings deal with wisdom. And she was very disappointed about how human beings respond to wisdom. And she decided that human beings were not deserving of wisdom. So she took a gourd and went all over the world and collected all of the wisdom of the world and returned to Africa and climbed the highest tree in all of Africa and lashed that gourd to the top of that tree with a strong well. And as she climbed and reached the top of the tree, a violent wind blew the gourd out of her grasp, and the gourd smashed against the ground, and the wind blew the wisdom all over the world again. I took a spider web and did an abstract of that spider web over the total of that particular canvas. Then began to build a painting. And the painting rises out of the origin of humankind. Now, archaeologically stated, and fossils, bones have the oldest human being coming from possibly Homo sapien, coming from Tanzania. And yes, and that those bones is pointing toward humanity's origin being out of Africa. So with that, and reflecting on even the Garden of Eden in Africa, touches upon undisputedly a great part of Africa, even as the continent is configured now against what we call the Middle East. And so out of that, we have this great march of humanity moving throughout history to all of the continents after the great division of continents, and people being dispersed everywhere, and people becoming of different kinds, as is reflected in the writings of Luke and the book of Acts, 17th chapter of Acts, in about the 20th verse, where it speaks of God making all humanity from one blood. From that march of humanity marches across the top of the canvas to the time of the pyramids in Africa, and then that great swell of humanity that was taken forcefully out of Africa, coming across the cold Atlantic Ocean to these shores. And we begin that by showing naked human bodies climbing up out of that mire of the ocean and seemingly becoming persons like Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, down to Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, coming forward to Carter G. Woodson, the father of so-called Black history, through many, many other persons, the commissioning of Booker T. Washington to Mr. Adams, who was the first founder, president of Grambling, the great Grambling state University, and other persons coming forward, and that we get to the first, second president. And then what occurred to me was Grambling State University has a number of their buildings that are named for many of the patriarchs and matriarchs of our people. So I took persons of that sort and added them to this piece and brought it forward to the time of the civil rights movement and Dr. King. Each one of these persons have a gourd that they are passing forward to the person in front of them, which bespeaks of the wisdom of generations being passed from one generation to the next. The only person among those that does not have a gourd in his hand is Dr. King. Dr. King has a light. He has a kerosene light, the first light that I was introduced to as a child living as a sharecropper. That light then emanates through his great mind and his love for this country and all of humanity throughout all the world. In time, President Barack Obama was not included in this because there was no President Obama at the time when I painted this. But when I did paint him in this piece, I was able to paint him in such a way that he not only was in the midst of this group, but he also stood forward in this. All of those figures are barefooted, and they are standing on cane cutters, washwomen, cotton pickers, all of those mundane jobs that people look down upon. But for those jobs, there would be no humanity. So hence the name of the piece, Standing on Shoulders.
Wow. Dr. CIncone, we have Miss Cindy Sellers from Los Angeles, California, is saying that she really, really appreciates this history lesson, and that she is telling us now, we want to hold her to it, is that she certainly wants one of these paintings. So we want to make sure we get her information, and we want her to either email or text us that information, Miss Sellers, and we'll get you the information with Dr. CIncone. But Dr. CIncone, wow, that's wow. That's a heavy story. Miss Sandy Davies, looks like her name. If I mispronounce your name, Miss Davies, I apologize. Miss Sandy Davies is asking, she said, excuse me, she's asking, she said, do you often have visions of your paintings prior to you painting? That's her, Sandy Davies, and she's from Denver, Colorado.
Yes, yes. The what she refers to as vision, I think of as listening. I listen for the inspiration, and the inspiration comes by way of the Holy Spirit. And as the Holy Spirit reveals to me the inspiration, then I go to work and the design begins to emerge. Everything that I do comes out of the abstract, and hence what I did as a child, as do all children, draw, and we draw abstract shapes, which in my neck of the woods was called chicken scratch, but that evolved with our thinking. And to point further to this is about story. Story is the first art form. Hence, looking at Genesis 1 through 5, Genesis 1 in particular and 2, in the beginning God, and then it says he created, all things were created, and then there was this void, and the Spirit was hovering over the void, and it seems to me that it's this void, this nothingness, that becomes God's resource. So the nothingness was made into what we think of as existence. And that's within all of us. Every child that has ever lived has this nothingness of the human mind is in all of us. And herein lies this expression of the creative process. And making the connection with this, going back to our people coming out of Africa, that's what drove them, that connection, that relationship with their belief in God and the strength of the family and the power of the Spirit of God enabled them to endure, and more than endure, as the book says, they became more than conquerors.
Wow, wow. And that's a perfect segue to the group. As I said to our listeners, is that this is a conglomerate of Shackles 400, and that they are unintended ambassadors. And I'd like to ask, as a group, as you collaborate and as you work toward, well, I almost said a finished product that will never be a finished product, but as you work toward a continuation of the product, do you see, quote, a direction or a splintering of educating those of us of color, as well as our less melanated brothers? And what I mean by splintering, please allow me to clarify: a splintering of knowledge, not a separation of people, but a splintering of knowledge, because all of the falsehoods that are out there, all of the misrepresentation that's out there. So as a group and as a collaborative, are you driving toward the ship being steered in a positive direction as it crossed the Pacific and the Atlantic and all these other places from which we were forced to ride? So as a group, would one of you like to kind of elaborate on where we see the ship being steered?
I think the educator among our group, Daryl Triplett, should take the first swing at that.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. When we speak of the knowledge, we know that we have the knowledge. What we're trying to get at, for the most part, is the truth. And we know the truth will set us free. And not only us free, but those of us who had us in bondage for so long. Until they come out of their comfort zones, they will never be free. We've never got an apology for slavery. So on that note, we will never be a free nation as a whole. We've endured, like Mr. Ross mentioned. We've endured. We've been cooperative. We've followed your law. We've done everything that you've asked us to do, except sometimes we might kneel because we get tired. But for the most part, we're looking toward the future. We want to make a difference. Of course, as an educator, that's what we want to. We want everybody to know what's going on, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is to inform, to enlighten, to ensure that we won't repeat those ills and sins that were done back in the past. Of course, we didn't do them; they did it to us. But there was a song by the great songwriter Sade. She wrote a song, I think it was called Africa. She said, "I pray to the Almighty that we don't do to them what they've done to us." And I always remember that, because we've endured for so long, and we've persevered, and we're still here. But yet we have a person in the White House now is trying to turn back that clock. And we have to counter that evilness with love and truth. So that's where we're trying to go, and particularly with our kids. We want to educate them to make them aware that they are more than conquerors and they could overcome any situations. People like Dr. CIncone and Ross, they set the tone for us, for my generation. And my goal is to set the tone for the next generation coming up and the one after that. So we have a ways to go, but it could be done. And so that's our goal.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. You know, a lot of time our brothers are quiet, but now there's a gentleman here he's saying he's from Colorado also. He's saying but he won't give me sir, if you give me the state in Colorado. Okay. He just said Colorado. But his name is Jim Simpson. And Jim is saying, he say that sounds good, but do you really think that will happen in our lifetime? Jim, can you kind of, if you don't mind, putting it in your little box real quick, maybe your age? We won't tell your age, but when you say our lifetime, okay. Jim just said, Jim said he's in his midlife crisis. So I'll leave it there.
I would think though, it can happen in our lifetime. The lack of knowledge is what causes us to perish. True knowledge keeps us together. And we have been fractured and splintered so long because of all of the different knowledge bases that we think we have aren't really true knowledge. And what we're trying to do is make us all aware of what's truthfully out there, what we should all know, and we could all come together. I think that is a binding element if we all knew the truth. Not only just us, but everybody knows the truth. You know, you go to a lot of my Caucasian friends now, if you talk about it, they don't know anything about the racism past. They say they didn't have anything to do with it, but they don't know that it's a generational thing. You know, certain things we do generationally that we don't even know we're doing, but we've done because our parents did it, our forefathers did it. And so their thinking is not quite as clear as it should be. And so it permeates our society also. You can just go in our neighborhoods and see how fractured we are on the base things that we're doing. You know, you have 4 churches on every corner. You have stores competing against each other. It's because we haven't come together and unified on one particular cause. But once we know, like the Bible says, once we know the true knowledge, it will keep us from perishing. It will keep us from being fractured.
And I'm going to be bold enough to say, not only can it happen, it's happening now.
Yes.
And it has always been happening now in America. That there is something that came to me once, and I put it in these words: there have always been more goodwill people than bad will people living in America. The goodwill people are the ones who doubtless made sure that it was in those words in the Declaration of Independence, in the pursuit of happiness, but moreover, in the pursuit of unity. We are Americans who are in pursuit of unity. Hence, we have an enfranchisement where we, the people, speak up toward the issues of the day in every generation, and we must keep this clean and workable for every election that we deal with, and don't hesitate to get out there and cast that ballot, because when we cast that ballot, we are people that will the unity for this country. So it not only can happen, it has happened, it will continue to happen.
Yes, and the people must remember that it's been 400 years. You know, we older than AT&T. We older than Google. We were way older than all of these entities that making millions and millions, billions and billions of dollars. If we would pool our resources together like what we're doing now and sharing this information with others, and the guy being from Colorado, one of his homeboys, his name is Robert Smith, one of the richest guys, and he's giving back. And you can't tell me that guy not making a difference in America. So if we all can come together, we can make a difference. Yes, we will.
Absolutely.
And it is.
And now, Charlotte from, I'm sorry, I want to get her question in, and then I'll be right back with you, gentlemen. Charlotte from Cincinnati, Ohio, was asking, she says, why are white people so surprised that we are angry? And she doesn't elaborate any further. And she just put hashtag with an exclamation point. So she, I mean, I know that's a loaded question, and Charlotte, we will try to answer that.
I don't think anybody has a definitive answer, but what we must speak to as talking on that question is we aren't angry. There is anger among those who are angry. When we deal with anger, it is driven out of the circumstances that we're involved in. The response to the anger is really the issue. Whether I will become destructive or whether I will take my anger and become constructive to eliminate the cause and issue of suffering among all people.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, give me just a second to welcome in. He's the regular on our Get Vocal platform, Big Bad Brad. Brad, if you'd like, feel free to come in and take one of these cameras if you have a question for our gentleman here. As you know, the topic is about Shackles 400. As you know, today is the 400th anniversary of when the first slaves docked in Virginia here in America. I think, Brad, you're from Venezuela, aren't you? Let me know. I don't want to make something up and give the guy some wrong information. Oh, you're from Indiana. Okay, I must have you confused with somebody else. But Brad's from Indiana, and Brad, feel free to if you have a question that you like to ask, to come on and grab one of those spots. But gentlemen, as we move forward, you know, I would just like to share as was sitting here and I'm listening to this dynamic group share your information. And when Charlotte is asking her question as to why, she said specifically with a hashtag and exclamation point, when she said, why are white people so surprised that we are angry? And you guys did an excellent job answering that. And I know it's an open question, but I think Brother Ross hit it on the head, is that sadly, many people remove themselves from the situation by saying that they didn't have anything to do with it, and that was then, and this is now, etc. Unfortunately, we won't own, regardless of race, creed, or color, people will not own the fact that you benefit. You know, and I do. I respect. I usually call our white sisters and brothers, our less melanated sisters and brothers, that until people own the fact that they benefit from a lot of the racist actions, from a lot of the politics that are put in place, etc. Because, you know, I have to challenge them all the time with the fact that when you came through Ellis Island, if things were so great where you were, then why did you find it necessary to come through Ellis Island? What were you seeking? And it's my understanding that they were seeking not only asylum, but they were seeking to have a voice and to have a better way of life and that kind of thing. So when the ancestors of those individuals that came through Ellis Island say to me that they don't really understand and that they have nothing to do with it, I'll be very honest. I take issue with that because I feel like it's really a cop-out when we all know pretty much the history of this country. Now, that doesn't mean that you hate anyone or that you're upset with anyone and think that they're just will not make a movement forward and try to grow. However, until we own, and just like anything, if I've done wrong to anyone and then I continually deny that I did wrong, then I'm not owning my part in the process. So until we own that, and the last thing I'll say to that also, Charlotte, is simply this. We all know that life is difficult. We all know there's a lot of anger. We all know there's a lot of hurt. We all know there's a lot of pain. However, we all have a responsibility to own whatever, quote, dirt, unquote, that we have to own. We all have a responsibility to step up to the plate. So when you ask that question, I'll be very honest with you. I know that, as Dr. CIncone alluded to, there is no definitive answer. However, yes, things are changing. Yes, they are moving forward. However, until we receive the fact that I have to own my part of the history, then there's always going to be a divide. And this is just one man's opinion. There's always going to be a divide and a frustration, because I can sit and Brad comes in, Brad supports us all the time. And I know that you are not on Get Vocal, Miss Charlotte. However, Brad does not look like any of us that faces that you can see. But Brad always comes in. He's very kind. He's very cordial, and he supports us. So I share that simply because I just wanted to touch upon your question again, just from a personal point of view. So anyway, Ms. Charlotte, if you want to continue to collaborate further, we will do so after the broadcast is over, if you don't mind. And we do appreciate your question. And so, gentlemen, as we move forward in this process, I know I'm excited. I know as I look around and I got to meet the three of you gentlemen, and you guys got me fired up, and I'm looking at the Shackles 400. I want one of you, please, in this personal, if you would just share with our audience. You've already told us the origin behind it. You've already told us how it came together. You've already told us how you collaborate on it. And as I said, thumbs were going up and still going up, and hearts are going up and still going up on the other monitor. However, will you just share with them again briefly, because we had some people to come on a little late. Just if you'll give a brief synopsis of the Shackles 400 and how it came about. I know we've done that already, but if you can just give a mini version of the process, just for the people that came on late.
Sure.
Okay, I'll mention the mission statement once again. It is to build relationships of mutual respect, truth of the past, by seeking wisdom and understanding of our human identity to benefit present and future generations. And the Shackles 400 Unchained ambassadors, the thought came about some years ago, as Don mentioned earlier. We were down and doing an art exhibit in Baton Rouge about 4 or 5 years ago at Southern University, and it came to us in a few years we'll be celebrating 400 years. So we put that thing together. As an artist, we always trying to make statements and tell us stories of where we've been and where we are going. So that's what we do as artists, painting all of those iconographies and historical figures, and all of those things started at our kitchen tables and from our own experiences, personal experiences. And by me growing up in New Orleans, my deal was more contemporary, jazz and the Mardi Gras and the other things. And Uncle Don and Ross was more rural. And of course, I've been here long enough now that a lot of my work is pertaining to the rural Louisiana Delta. And of course, from there, of course, we got the museum, in which Mr. Ross can go into more detail. But it all started back then, and we finally came to a conclusion. I made some contacts. I called Mr. Ross, and since he was running the museum, and Don and I had already came up with some ideas, and it just took off from there. And so here we are sharing our ideas with the world, and hoping that those who are hearing us on your podcast can go out and share with other people. And that's making a difference. That's how we get the word out. Somebody is listening. We pray that it will make a difference in somebody else's life. And that's what we have to do. We have to keep going. We can't give up. And I'm saying that specifically to your caller was asking how are we going to get people to change. There's a lot of people.
That's Charlotte from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah. So Charlotte, you just can't give up. You can't sit in that room all day and close the door and just grieve. You got to get out and do something. And that's what we're doing.
Serve people.
You have to serve. Absolutely. Yes.
We got to remember that social media is a powerful weapon today. And if you ever watch social media, what sells is tragedy and discontent. And so what we always see is angry Black people. because that's what sells. We don't never see the good part, the good things that people are doing. And that's what we want people to understand, that there's a lot of good in the actions that people do. And one of them is going back, telling the story about the ambassadors, about us becoming ambassadors. And I want us to always realize that even though today is that day, the shirts and the t-shirts and the hats we're commemorating, so we can go back and say it's been 400 years. This is not a one-day thing event. This goes on forever. We want them to know this 400 years is the beginning of a new era for us. So these t-shirts and these logos are completely timeless to us.
Absolutely. Okay, gentlemen, we don't want to keep you guys all night, but if there's anything else that you'd like to share on this broadcast, because I do want our listeners to know that this is going to be a series, guys. As we progress and move forward, then we're going to keep you informed as to how we're progressing and where we're moving and how you can get shirts and how you can get hats and how you can get the paraphernalia that's being shared, how you can get various paintings and things of that nature. We want you to understand, and Brother Ross Slacks has made it very clear. It's clear to me, and he was very concise in his statement, is that, you know, basically this is a movement. This is not a one-time situation. It's a movement. We want you to join the movement and to just bring you back in on the topic, America's unintended ambassadors. And Brother Ross did an excellent job. So you explaining that. You can go back, and we wish that you would go back and watch the taped version and share it with your friends. And we're working collaboratively on the piece, the antithesis of America's reality, Shackles 400 Unchained, America's unintended ambassadors. And of course, that includes all of us. So we want you guys to understand that this is a movement. It's not just a piece of conversation. It's not a you against them. It's not a we against the world. It's a us moving forward. And again, Dr. CIncone, Brother Triplett, and Brother Slacks have already shared their feelings and their thoughts as to us moving positively already in a positive direction. And Brother Big Bad Brad is saying amen, and he's saying thanks. And Brad, we appreciate you. And Charlotte and the other guys are giving us thumbs up on the other monitors and sending up hearts. So I feel the brothers have done a great job. And I just want to ask these gentlemen if you have anything else that you might want to share. At the end, I'm going to share a little poem with you just to kind of tie this thing up, called Wondering About My Roots, because I have a question I didn't get to. I see, and maybe he'll watch the replay, but there was a young man that I saw on here. He said, I'm in high school. My name is Damien, and sometimes I'm embarrassed to be black. And I want to get Damien in, but I guess, you know, kids are impatient. So he didn't tell me where he's from, but I did write his name down. So I'm going to read a little poem for Damien here in a minute, and I hope he comes back and watch the replay. So would the gentleman like to highlight anything else for this broadcast? And I repeat again, we have a series. So this is just part one.
Go ahead, Ross.
Well, first of all, the only other thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank you, Melvin, for being a part of this group. Most people might not know, but you are also a part of the group and our collaborative efforts of what got us this far. And I just hope people join on with us and continue to pray for us and help us to do the right thing and to help us point in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, I want to thank you guys for it, because this is very important to me and very special. And it's a wonderful group, and I want to go on record talking to literally millions of people to say that it's very refreshing to be able to collaborate with a group of brothers of color, because all men are my brothers, just like you guys have shared very clearly and very, again, concisely, that all men are your brothers as well. But we get to sit and we get to refute all of the craziness that's out there about men of color not being able to come together, not being able to collaborate, not having anything intellectual to share. So I just want to thank you, brothers, for having the opportunity to affording me the ability to be a part of this group. And as I say that really shook me up when I saw Damien come on here and say that he's a high school student and sometimes he's ashamed to be black. And I had this poem I was going to read anyway, but to me it just makes it more significant. And again, I hope he goes back and watch the replay. He didn't tell us where he was from, and he got off early. So I just want to share that with you guys. But in closing, before we tell people how they can contact us, I want to read this poem for our other young people that may be listening, and especially for Damien. Damien, I'm calling you out today, brother. This poem is called Wondering About My Roots. It goes right to your question. Is my ancestral tree filled with kings, queens, princesses, and the like, with a wonderful array of fancy headdress, diamonds, pearls, and jewelry gleaming in the night? Or am I simply just a worn out old root full of lazy, shiftless slaves in run over broke hand boots, gleefully and ignorantly running around in tattered shirts and pants, with not a sense of responsibility in my head, only shuffling along, waiting for the next fiddle to strike a chord so that I can make contorted faces and be happy just to dance? For you see, a tree that can span from Africa, torn from the doors of no return, delivered to the shores of Tripoli, navigate shark-infested waters of the Pacific and Ocean, and defy ill-intentioned, hate-filled marauders, are roots that I want wrapped around me. The roots that holds these trees together and successfully refutes all of their detractors' manufactured lies, methodically highlighting the brilliance of the ancestors as we learn of their stolen inventions and their ability to survive. Our journeys have been filled with bloodshot and tear-stained eyes, but well worth the travel to reveal the devil's lies. Having the privilege of being a descendant of such a strong people and an admirer of the ancestry that I do know, I have to tighten up my bootstraps and continue to go. Go, I say. Go I must. I must ride on the front of the bus. Go, I say. Go I must. I must ride to the polls and help to fight for us. Go, I say. Go I must, with hammer in hand, and tear down the walls of prejudice and hate. Go, I say. Go I must, to the educational facility to gain the scholar's trust. Go, I say. Go I must, to the child that has no hope. Go, I say. Go I must, to the man that uses dope for hope. Go, I say. Go I must, to a lifestyle that warrants respect and trust. Go, I say. Go I must, to the downtrodden, to the sick and the lame. Go, I say. Go I must, to my fellow man and attempt to ease his pain. But whether I go and need not I tarry, I go down on my knees and pray for God's children everywhere, incessantly, not missing a day. For you see, it matters not what others think about my tree, nor who they perceive me to be. God has placed a loving heart deep within me, and the millions of leaves that moves from the force of an invisible breeze are his eyes that keeps a constant watch over us as we walk to him, often on bended knees. So Damien, I want you to share this poem with your friends, and if you email me, I will send you a copy of this poem to share with your friends. And it's very disturbing to me as a man of color to hear a young African-American boy said he's sometime ashamed to be Black, but at least you're being honest. So with that, gentlemen, I just want to thank you guys again for being here. I want to offer you the opportunity, if you have any final comments, to please feel free to share those at that time. I see Dr. Vibe has joined us. Dr. Vibe, it's always a pleasure to have you aboard. Gentlemen, Dr. Vibe is out of Toronto, Canada. Dr. Vibe is an award-winning videocaster. He always corrects me about saying podcaster. He's an award-winning podcaster slash videocaster out of Toronto, Canada. He does a lot of work with young men and men groups, and he's a speaker and he's an entrepreneur, and he does a lot of things. So Dr. Vibe, please feel free as we get ready to close to, if you hop on for a minute and say hello to our listening audience and say hello to the gentleman, we will be honored. If you will take one of these seats right quickly as we prepare to close. But again, gentlemen, if you have any final comments, please feel free to share those as we close.
Yeah, just one more thing on my part. This is a grassroots. This is an organic effort. It is not pertaining to any kind of politics whatsoever, or even though we were born into politics. But we are here to be to just share our experiences and what we know that works. And all of our thoughts and ambitions, they come from God. And that's where Damien needs to focus his effort. And once he realizes that, oh, he'll see the light.
I'll add to that, we are not beginning a movement. This is a 400-year-old movement as coming forth, and our identity is spoken of in the creed that we offered up there. This is humanity, and therein lies our identity. Our identity is not with color, it's not with race. Our identity is God. God created us in His image. So therefore, humanity's identity is God's identity.
Excellent. Dr. Vibe has joined us. Dr. Vibe, how you doing, sir?
I am blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. How are you, gentlemen?
Great.
Hello, Dr. Vibe.
Good, good. And Don, I owe you an email, so don't get too mad at me.
All right. Thank you, sir.
That's all right. Well, I'm sorry that I did not catch the main group of the program. I was actually finishing facilitating a parenting course for Black men. So please forgive me.
Hey, not a problem. You have anything you'd like to ask the gentleman real quickly as we close, or anything you'd like to share?
I don't know if they had a chance to share upon it, but I just want to know from each of the gentlemen the importance of intergenerational learning in their lives.
Who'd like to be first?
Well, I'll answer that best I can. Intergeneration is very important. If you remember during the Civil Rights Movement in Birmingham, Dr. King called upon those young kids to go out there and lead that movement. Yeah. And those dogs and fire hoses were turned loose on children. But even the Bible says you have to let the children lead, the youth. Of course, they are the future. And of course, Don shared with us the knowledge and wisdom that he brings to the table with Ross and I. Ross he handed to Ross. Ross handed down to me. I have to hand it down to the next generation. So generation is in that lexicon. We have to be able to honestly speak to what we've been through and where we've gone, where we want to go, and that's the only way we can get it done.
And that's about family. Therein lies the significance of family. The first institution that God creates is family, man, woman, and children living in relationship together.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm thinking about the times when I would see my great-grandparents. They were on their knees all the time, and my mother and their grandparents, and it brings down to me. So out of all of the things that I've learned is from them, that no matter what tragedies beset me, I always know to go back to what they taught me to do to get me through things. And it's just not in religion, but in all facets of life. That intergenerational learning is what gets me through today.
Excellent.
Dr. Vibe?
No, I don't have
anything else you'd like to share?
Time is precious, and we're coming to the top of the hour, so I'm cognizant of everyone's time.
Hey, we appreciate it. Gentlemen, if you will, please, if you would tell our audience how they may contact you in the near future.
DonCincone.com.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook right now. You can go to Daryl Triplett. The website is under construction, the new website that is. In a couple of days to no later than, I guess, 2 weeks from now, it should be up.
And the easiest way to get to me is through my name. It's rossslacks@aol.com, and I will get back and give you any information that you may need about our other enterprises.
About the museum.
Right. Dr. Vibe?
Very easily, DRVIBESHOW.com, or follow me on Get Vocal. I have a number always of epic conversations on the go.
All right. And guys, you can contact me at www.yourbrighterfuture.org. Once you get there, you'll find all of my social media contacts. This Friday, guys, let me say to Mr. Ross Slacks, we have 7:00 p.m. none other than Miss Chantel Overton. And Mr. Slacks is the one that brought Miss Overton to my attention. And we were always reading about history in the books. You can talk to the historian of the Overton Empire. I say it's an Overton Empire. You will be fascinated with the story that they have. Mr. Ross Slacks, who's sitting in the middle of this panel here, informed me of the Overtons, and I shared with him. I had never heard of the Overtons, and it's such rich history there until it behooves all of us to listen. So Friday at 7:00 p.m. if you'll come back and listen to us, please. So again, guys, it was great having you all here. Again, I want to say to the young man, Damien, that was saying he's a teenager, but sometimes he's embarrassed to be Black. I sincerely hope that you contact us again so that we can talk to you. We saw where he got off early, but Damien, we sincerely hope that you contact us. Dr. Tachi, we can't get off of here unless you take a seat. You have to say hello to the gentleman and tell these guys who you are. It's great to see you. So you have to take that last seat, Dr. Tachi, before we go.
She may not be camera ready, just FYI.
Okay.
I know Dr. Tachi.
Okay.
See,
she's saying her camera. But guys, thank you, Dr. Vibe, for one. Guys, let me tell you, Dr. Tachi is a professor. I think she's from Nigeria. Is she from Nigeria, Dr. Vibe?
I believe so.
She's a college professor. She does media scope. She does a lot of things, and she's also a great supporter. And we're glad that she's here with us tonight. So, guys, we were so grateful to have you. It is now past the top of the hour, so we're going to bid everyone good night from the Nobody Asked Me Guys show.
Thank you.
Thank you.